Damien ruins horror movies.
What's going on, guys? It's that time again for another episode of Damien Ruins Horror Movies. I'm Damien. If you have not already liked and subscribed and commented and shared and blah blah blah, now is the time. And that's all the begging I'm going to do, okay? I'm sorry, I know it's pathetic, isn't it? Please subscribe to my site, please. Anyway, tonight is Wolf Creek, a gem from 2005, directed by Greg McLean. I don't know what other movies he's done because I've not done my homework properly. Nor do I know where you can watch this movie because I own it. No, that's a dick move, huh? I own it, so I didn't look out for you guys at all. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I did look. I can't find it anywhere, so I don't know where it is. And I only checked like stuff I have. So if it's on Amazon, I didn't look because I don't have Amazon Prime. But I'll tell you this: if you have pawn shops in your area, you can find it there. Because I used to go to pawn shops all the time. It's where I bought a large chunk of my movies, and every time I went there. It's funny because I don't think this movie's that popular. I think it's way more popular now than it was back then. Every time I went there was always like 2 or 3 copies of this movie. And that's why I bought it. I hadn't heard of it, but I saw it so much. I was like, okay, it's a horror movie. I'll check it out. And I got it, and I fucking loved it. It was good. Now, if you want to know where to watch Wolf Creek 2 or Wolf Creek the series, I can tell you that. Between Tubi and Shudder, you can watch everything Wolf Creek except for the first one. Which is fucking annoying when that kind of shit happens. Like, why? Oh, you have Wolf Creek 2 on there. Do you have Wolf Creek 1 by chance? No. Why would we have that? I don't know. So I can start? Because maybe I've never seen it before? No, we just have the second one. It's like my Child's Play box set. It's got, like, all the Child's Plays that had come out at that point, except for the first one. It's like, because who wants to see that? I like jumping in the middle. Fuck the beginning. I don't care how the guy got in the doll. I just want to see the doll do shit. So our characters in this film are Ben, Liz, and Christy. I'm not sure how these guys know each other. Because Ben is from Australia, where the movie takes place. I have to put this pen down. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. You're going to keep seeing this shit. Because I'm playing with it. Ben is from Australia. The 2 girls are from England. The 2 girls seem to know each other. And it seems like Christy kind of knows Ben. That's the vibe that I'm getting. They're going to go on a road trip so they can go backpacking, except they don't have a car. So Ben buys a car for $1,500, and they are off to the races. Oh, but first they got to go party. They party, and they party, and then they wake up on a beach with an extra dude who has nothing to do with the story. He's just there, like Christy hooked up with him or I don't know. They kind of black out, and next thing you know, it's morning. They're ready to go. Extra dude disappears. They hit the road, and they're a little hungover. It's funny because they seem like they're supposed to be, I don't know, really early 20s, maybe late teens. And at that age, I was like your body bounces back better when you're younger, but at the same time, alcohol is when it's still new to you, it doesn't bounce back. I think maybe like 25 if you got some partying in you, that's kind of the sweet spot where it's like you just get up like nothing happened. But I think the first couple years, you're like, Jesus Christ, did I get hit by a truck last night? No, you're just a pussy. You're not 25 yet. But they hit the road, taking turns driving. It sickens me how comfortable they are in this little car. Everybody's just kind of like sprawled out. It's like first class up there. Fucking Ben's got a guitar. He's in the backseat, leaned forward, like playing, and it's just like, that's not what being in a car is like. And it doesn't look like they've done anything weird to the car. It's not like when you watch a movie like Snakes on a Plane, where they're on this plane and the inside of the plane's like a mansion. You're like, what the fuck plane looks like that inside? It's not like that. It's not like the car is anything weird. It's just like cars are not that comfortable. Even like especially this car. This isn't like an SUV or some huge luxurious car. It's just an old piece of shit like station wagon. And they're just like, oh, we're comfortable. I got all this room. I got my pillow here. I'm spacing. Like sleeping in the passenger seat, just sprawled out with a pillow, which is a good idea to have a big pillow there. I never have the foresight to know that I'm going to go to sleep in a car. So I'm just like bashing my head on the window on every bump, trying to. But yeah, it's like, God, you guys are making road trips look a little more fun than they are. Because road trips aren't fun because we're having a fucking party inside. They're fun because you're on your way somewhere, and it's outside of the car that makes the trip interesting, not the shit you're doing in the car. Or maybe I've just done it wrong. I don't know. But eventually they get to Wolf Creek, and it's this crater. That's what they're gonna look at, and there's a sign. It's like, yeah, welcome to Wolf Creek. 3 hours. It's a 3-hour hike to the crater, and they're like, all right. So they park the car, get the backpacks on, they head out. They go. Oh, but I forgot the most important part, which won't sound very important right now, but it's important for later. When on the way, they stop for gas at like a truck stop where Ben almost kind of gets in a fight with some dude who, big dudes, big trucker guys that you're fully capable of kicking the shit out of him. But before that happens, between pumping the gas and getting the shit kicked out of him, he finds a camcorder in the back of his car. I don't know what to call those anymore. It's a camcorder, video camera. It's like they're so outdated, I don't even know. Because it was originally a VH tape, then it was digital, and it was like, what'd you call them once they went digital? I don't know. I wanted one, but I don't know what the fuck they were called at that point. It's like, oh, it's a movie camera. You're expecting this big old fucking... But anyway, he pulls it out and he selfie style films himself. And he's like, oh, look at me. I'm going on a road trip. And he films the area around him. Bookmark that. So they hike and they get to the crater. The crater is this huge... They talk about aliens and stuff, which is kind of funny because the crater reminds me... Only it's not frozen, but it totally reminds me of the crater, the crash spacecraft in The Thing. I mean, it looks just like that almost, except this is Australia and that's Antarctica. But it was looking at it and they're like, oh, is this aliens? Christy, a little earlier, because that's the thing about this movie, and this part of what's awesome about this movie is it's a normal movie. For the first 40 minutes. It's just these people, they're going on a trip, they're going on a road trip, they're into the wild, they're going, Ben has a girlfriend, but Liz kind of has a thing for Ben, and Ben's kind of, Liz is kind of hot, and Christy's kind of like, It seems like Christy's the link between these two. It's almost like Christy's friends with Ben, and Christy's friends with Liz. Liz and Ben don't know each other, but they're getting to know each other. They've gotten to know each other because there's not a lot of interaction between the two of them, or between the three of them as we're going, but there's still basic kind of setup because they're together on a trip. It's still a weird dynamic. And so Christy tells Ben, like, hey, I think Liz kind of has a thing for you. It's like, oh yeah? Well, Liz is kind of cute. He's like, well, you better figure out your little girlfriend situation first. He's like, oh, I know. And the next thing you know, him and Liz are making out. Kind of behind Christy's back. Like, Christy's going to get jealous. Because it's not really implied that, because I'm friends with your girlfriend, Ben, so if I find out, if I catch any shenanigans, I'm going to fucking tell her, and, yeah. It's none of that. It's just kind of like, do the right thing, Ben, you prick. I don't know how long they stayed around the crater or near the crater, but eventually they head back to the car. They hike, they backpack. How do you say that? I don't do that kind of shit, so I don't know I don't know the lingo. They backpack back to the car, and with their bloody black backpacks. Remember that stupid song? They get back to the car. They're like, all right, let's go, which is kind of, for all the effort they've gone to get, like, to Wolf Creek to hike to the crater, hang out there for a minute, then hike back. Because it seems like it's like, wow, we put all this preparation, all this time into getting to the crater just so we can look at it and go, oh, wow. All right. Everybody ready to go? Well, okay, crater. See you later. And they just turn around and go. It's like, are you going to camp out there? I'm going to feel stupid if they did and I just forgot. So they go back to the car, and it won't start. So they're kind of stranded. They're like, ah, shit, what are we going to do? Because they're not really near anything. And they're the only ones that wanted to see the crater that day. There's nobody else around. So they, oh, cool, we got this car that won't start. Now what? And then eventually night comes. Exit light, as Metallica would say. Fucking. And they're still sitting there, and they're kind of camped out in this very luxuriously comfortable fucking station wagon. It's like, as far as places to be stranded, this actually looks pretty good. It's like, wow, where'd you, like, I would buy that. Based on this movie, I would buy that car. It's like, how much would you sell that station wagon for? That looks roomy and comfy as hell. I will give you $1,500 for it. And then eventually, in the distance, they see lights. But instead of like thinking, oh, cool, lights, they kind of get scared. Especially Ben, because he's like, oh, shit. Aliens. Because there's a big part of aliens that... Because there's part of Ben that thinks that the crater is an alien spacecraft. Like maybe he watched The Thing 12 times before this hike. You know, like me, I like to watch Final Destination before I have to fly somewhere. It's just a weird quirk in me. I love how there's a horror movie that you can indulge in before every little adventure you go on, just to make it a little more interesting, just to make you a little more like, the lights come, they're a little worried, but it turns out it's not aliens. It's a man. It's a man. His name is Mick Taylor. A charismatic Outback guy. A little creepy, a little weird, a little off, but nice enough. Generous. Wants to help. Has a vehicle which coincidentally can tow shit. Like the perfect guy to run into in this situation. It's almost like fate. For the lack of a better term. Fate was a great euphemism for what's happening right now. He takes a look at their car and he's like, well, your coil wire is fried. Well, you got to get a new one. It's not going to start. And they're like, oh, okay. And they have like a little team meeting. They're like, well, what should we do? He's like, I can take you to my shop and I can change it. They're like, well, it's like, well, we don't really have any money for that. And he's like, oh crikey. What do you need money? I'll change it for free, blah, blah. Like, okay. They're like, because they're like thinking up excuses. They're kind of like, I wish you just had an extra coil wire with you and could do it right now. Yeah, that's their thought process. And he's like, it's a big deal. I have a shop just down there a ways. So like, what do we do? I mean, should we just, maybe he could tow it back to town and we can get the coil wire changed there? Or do we go with him? And then he kind of like shuts that shit down. He's like, well, town, that's back north. I'm going south. North. This is exactly how he says it too. North, south. North, south. You get. I'm going that way, or I'm going this way. So it's like, either come with me, I'll do it for free, or fuck off. So they're kind of like, I guess we don't really have a choice. And they go with him. And they don't realize the crater appears to be a shorter walk than his fucking shop is a drive, because they're in their car for a minute, and they're just like, are we fucking there yet? And it's the middle of the night. Who knows what time it is when they actually get there? And then that gets kind of weird because they go, once they finally arrive, they sit around a campfire, and he's like, oh, I got booze. Who wants to party? I mean, he didn't actually say that, but he's like, they kind of pass drink around, and they're drinking and just bullshitting for a while. And he's like, "Well, I better get working on that car." And it's like, "Well, what are you gonna? You're gonna get drunk and work on the car, and then you're gonna finish, and we're gonna be drunk, and we're gonna drive out of here? What's?" Because they didn't appear to plan to stay the night. There's a little odd foreshadowing. The funny thing about this movie is the first time you watch it, it's awesome. And the second time you watch it, it's like, ooh, because this drops little nuggets all around. You can't see them yet because you don't know what's going to happen. But once you know what happens, it's like, oh shit, they're kind of telling you all along. They're sprinkling this shit on you the whole time. One subtle little clue is Mick. It's like a little foreshadow. Mick's talking about hunting kangaroos. They're, well, why do you hunt kangaroos? And he's like, because there's so many of them. They're all over the place. They're like tourists. And that's that little wink. Like, I kill tourists too, bitch. Coincidentally, you guys are tourists. So they all kind of pass out around the fire. And in the morning they wake up and they're separated. And we pan in on good old Liz, who's zip tied. She got a little gag in her mouth and she's zip tied. And she's like, what the hell? And it's morning and it's light. So somehow it takes... She's in this like part of a shed. Basically all day. Because by the time... And I don't remember if they show or not what time of year this is. I'm assuming it's kind of summer. I don't know how seasons work in Australia. But when it starts, the sun is rising. By the time she finds the piece of broken glass, a big shard of glass, that she uses to cut herself free, because she gets the gag out immediately, but doesn't bother yelling because she's playing it smart. But when it comes to like figuring out how to zip tie and like undo her ankles and hands, it's like dark out. So it's like, have you been zip tied? It took you 12 hours? And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I would have been out of there in 1 hour. I'm not saying that. It's like, that's a long stretch of time that we just glossed over. And we don't see, nothing else happens. Like, it's not like we start with her and then we pan over to Ben and then we pan over to Christy and then we go see what Mick's doing and then we go back to Liz and time has passed. It's just, we kind of shows Liz doing this and that and then finding the shard and then she finally gets herself free and it's dark. But then she goes to like the main part of the shed and she finds Christy. And Christy is like, zip tied to a post. And old Mick is like using her for target practice. And Liz is like, oh shit, I gotta do something. I have to like save her. And Mick kind of implies that he's gonna rape her. So he puts the shotgun down and goes over to her, and she's like covered with blood. So he's been doing shit to her for a while. We're just now catching up with the two of them, and so he starts getting a little inappropriate with her until he hears a noise behind him. Good old Liz has his rifle, and she's like, "Get away from her." He's like, "What? Nice try. There's no more bullets in it. I shot the last one. I only had one in there." And she's like, "Oh, okay." Boom! He was lying. She shoots him in the neck, drops him. And she even goes for the double tap. She's like, fuck this guy. She gets on top, pulls the trigger. Turns out he was lying or just wrong because there wasn't one bullet. There was two. And now there's none. And then she, because she knows she's not one of the slumber party massacre girls, she starts beating him with the rifle. She hits him in the back, though. It's like, what are you doing? Cave his fucking skull in. Break his head, because who knows what this guy's capable of. This is already crazy. She frees Christy. They hop in his tow truck and they drive the fuck out of there. They have no idea where Ben is, but it's like, we gotta go, because Liz is in a situation where Christy's in bad shape and I don't know how bad a shape she's in. I don't know where Ben is, but I gotta get Christy the fuck out of here, and then we can figure it out, and then we'll circle back for Ben. Because in all honesty, especially Liz is like, yeah, I made out with him. Yeah, I thought he was cute. Had a little thing for him. But he has a girlfriend. I don't know him. I'm not going to die for him. And that's not being selfish. That's being smart. This is also where the game of cat and mouse begins. But it doesn't last long because Liz is smart enough to realize we got to ditch this fucking truck. So she drives it. Well, she pulls over near the cliff, and they push it off, and it rolls down the cliff. And then they climb. Then they stupidly climb down the cliff a little bit, so they're like right below where it dropped, and the truck's below them. They're like trying to like. And somehow Mick. It's weird because I don't know. It's like they knew Mick was right after him somehow. Mick knew exactly where the truck drove off, because it wasn't like Mick was like, "Where are they? Where are they?" And then the truck hit the bottom and blew up. It didn't blow up; it just hit the bottom. But somehow he's like, "Oh, they must have drove it off right there. They don't know the Outback, idiots. They must have drove off the cliff." So he pulls up near them, and he goes down to find the bodies, make sure they're dead, and see how his truck's doing. So then they head back to the shop because now they need a new car. Because Mick had, they walk back to the shop because Mick's got his keys. He takes his keys with him when he walks down to the bottom of the ravine or cliff or whatever the hell. So they're like, well, we can't take that. We got to go back to the shop. And Chris is like, I'm not fucking going back there. And Liz's like, we have to because we need another vehicle. He has a lot of cars there and Ben's there. So they walk for a little while and Liz is like, okay, stay here because you're wounded. I'm not, and I can go faster on my own. I'm going to go get a car and try and find Ben, and I'll meet you back here, okay? And she's like, okay. So she gets back to the shop, and she finds all these cars, and she starts going through them. She realizes that the cars they belong to people who Mick has killed previously. And she finds, like, camcorders from other families that were vacationing. The tourists, the pesky tourists that he kills like kangaroos. And she's like, oh, wow, he's done this before. And then she finds Ben's camera. Yeah, because she finds Ben's car and she finds his camera. And for some reason she starts watching. It's like, why are you watching Ben's camera? Trying to get the fuck out of here. But she starts watching the video on there. Kind of doesn't make, now that I'm saying it, kind of, when you're watching it makes sense, but as I'm saying, it's kind of like, why would you stop and do that? You're in a hurry. You got a killer on you. You don't know where he is. But it's basically to let the audience know. And this is kind of the scariest part of the movie. Because she turns it on. She watches it. And Ben's doing this little selfie video in the parking lot of the truck stop where they got the gas. And he pans around a little bit. And you can see, this is like the reveal. You can see behind him is Mick's fucking truck. And it's letting the viewer know. And it's funny because when you watch the movie again, you'll see while he's filming it, you'll see it there. It's just before you didn't know to look for it because it's not like it's on the cover. You don't know who he is. But you see, Mick's been following them the whole fucking time. And the reason why he figured out what was wrong with their car so fast is because he's the one that fucked up the coil wire so that the car wouldn't start, so that they would need his help. That way he could find them and bring them back into this trap and kill them. And that part to me was always like, it's like, oh, gee, that's creepy. This motherfucker's been watching. He's been stalking them this whole fucking time. And then when he finds them, he acts like this nice guy. Liz finds her new car, but it's too late because Mick is back and he finds her. He catches her. It's implied that he kills her. And then Christy has made a run for it, and it is now light out. And Christy's walking down the road, and a car passes her. Notices that she looks like she's in trouble. So it stops, and it goes to pick her up, and she gets in the car. And the person, I think he like goes to the trunk to get a blanket or something. And he gets shot. He gets sniped. Because in the distance is good old Mick and his rifle. And so she's like, uh-oh. He's dead. And like she runs out and tries to get the keys from him. She gets back in the car. But then Mick shoots her and kills her. Then we go back to Mick's shop where Ben is. He's like on a crucifix and finally like manages to get himself off of it and hobble away. And he's alive. He's been alive the whole time. And he stumbles his way to freedom. And the good news is he doesn't have to tell his girlfriend about Liz now. And he gets rescued by a couple of tourists. And then here's where they try and spin. They try and spin at the beginning, saying this is based on a true story. And then the movie ends with, like, Liz and Christy's body. It goes into the writing, when the credits are about to roll, and the screen goes black, and it's like, Liz and Christy's bodies were never found. Ben was released 4 months later, and it's like the end. Here's the problem with that. If it's based on a true story, and the majority of the kill, like the scene from the campfire, like from the waking up from the campfire to the end, most of that was the stuff that happened to the girls. Now, Mick Taylor was never caught. And the other two people in this true story are dead. So how do you know? Like, that's a lot of true story that's missing. There's no way you could know. You don't have bodies. You don't have anybody that could have told the story. Did Ben just like... Ben couldn't see anything. They were too far away. Not based on a true story. Stop it, okay? Quit using based on a true story as a modifier. I love this movie. Don't get me wrong. I get tired of that. Yeah, I saw Wolf Creek. Oh, did you like it? No, I thought it was stupid. You know it was based on a true story. Oh, shit, I'm going to have to rewatch that. No, I can't believe that. It's like... And it's funny because that only works for like the first movie. And then it's like, Wolf Creek 2, that happened too. Really? Oh, and then the series, like, when does it stop being a true story? It's a true story the whole time. It's not a true story. It might be, yeah, fucked up shit probably happens in the Australian outback, and here's what we can assume might happen to some people, because maybe that number of people that disappear is accurate. This is by no means a true story. Because there's nobody to fucking tell that story. And I do really like this movie. And for a 2005 movie, because I always shit on this era of horror. I always shit on this era of horror for being all remakes and plot twists. And this movie, honestly, I was expecting, like, because Ben to get away and be the last to survive, and we haven't seen him the whole time. I was expecting the plot twist. I was expecting, since it looked like Ben had, and this might have actually made a better movie, except there's too many goddamn plot twists. So the fact that it wasn't a plot twist was the plot twist. That's a anyway. I was expecting, there is no Mick Taylor. I was expecting, since all we're seeing is the girls being terrorized by this guy, we see nothing from Ben except for after everything's said and done, then we catch up with Ben and he frees himself and he gets locked up for a while and released. I was thinking, oh, I know what happened, because he kind of orchestrated this fucking road trip in the first place. It turns out Mick Taylor, this is some Fight Club. Oh, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Fight Club. If you haven't seen it, that's your problem, because that's almost 22 years old and it's a fucking awesome movie. But Ben and Mick are the same person. I was totally expecting Ben to be the killer all along. And I was kind of relieved when he wasn't, because it's like, oh, that's a good plot twist, is to not have that fucking plot twist, because it was fucking there. I was like, yeah, all you gotta do is make Ben the killer. It was him all along. Mick Taylor was this figment of the imagination. I'm glad they didn't, and they couldn't have had Wolf Creek 2 in the series if they had. So props to you, Greg McNeil. The Badass Award goes to, I'm going to say Liz, because Liz, even though normally I like to give them to survivors, Liz tried. She went back, part of it because she had to, because she needed a car, but she was looking out for everybody else. She was trying to save everybody else. She did the most good. She just died. Her efforts were rewarded with death. Sorry, Liz, but you were a badass. Survival tips, we don't have any. This is new for video. This week we don't have any survival tips, because normally survival tips are a preemptive measure to not do stupid shit that gets you killed. The characters in this movie didn't really do anything wrong. They did everything right. Much like the movie Green Room. If you haven't seen Green Room, go fucking watch it. I think it's on, I don't know what it's on. I own that one too. I think it might be on Shudder. It's on Netflix sometime. I don't know. Just Google it. Green Room's pretty awesome. It's not totally horror. It's this punk rock band that gets in some shit. But it's like that in ways of, like, the characters aren't fucking idiots, so it's easy to root for them. It's not like Jeepers Creepers where like 20 minutes in I was like, okay, I just want these guys to die. It's like all of a sudden I'm on the bad guy's side. It's like, just kill them. Find them. They're in there. Get them. Kill them. Make this movie end. I don't want to watch it anymore. I just want these main characters to die. But these characters were pretty smart. There's only 3. So once you're separated, I mean, there's only so much you can do. There's not a lot. I mean, my survival tip would have been something like, don't go backpacking. Don't talk to strangers. Don't buy a car for $1,500. Like stupid shit. I like the survival tips to be kind of like lifelong lessons. So that's it for this week. I just said a whole lot of nothing. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe though. See you next week.